Morning Year 10. So this week, as I've said in Show My Homework, it's all about taking you through paper 2 question by question. So I'll be asking you to pause the video at certain points for you to actually carry out the work. Try not to skip ahead because obviously that makes the work, it's basically cheating, so try not to do that. And hopefully this will be a good way of kind of taking you through like we would in the classroom, all the different elements and what you need to think about. So let's get started. Before we launch in, I just wanted to go through some methods with you because I know we've obviously done many methods before. We've talked about how marks and how they are not as important as what marks beat how and method marks. You need more of them, but I'm very conscious that we haven't really revised and recovered what actually is a good method to analyse for non-fiction. It does differ slightly to fiction. Obviously people who are writing stories draw on different methods than those who are writing articles, etc. So that's what we're going to look at first. So can you write the title, a note on methods, please, and as a little subheading. This can just go on your notes to go in your folder, so online paper. Okay, I've already said that. Right, so the ones in red are the key ones that I think are useful for non-fiction. So we're looking at the position of the writer, and whether they've written in first person or third person is a good method to look out for, because every text, well, it's very rare you get second person, but so 99% of texts in the world are written in either first or third person, so there's a guaranteed method you can draw on, and also the authority. So many of the texts that the exam board give you are accounts. In the last few years we've had a lot of accounts, which is just somebody's personal experience of an event in an article. So they're usually accounts within articles, or they can just be accounts on their own. So in this case, it's really important if they're written in first person, because obviously that's a far more intimate account of what's happening. We're having a direct experience. So that's a really interesting method. Whereas third person is far more objective. We're getting an outsider account, but maybe a third person, like a journalist who's not experienced it directly, might then quote or go and speak to someone who has had a first person experience, and to make it more intimate for us as a reader. So there's loads of methods that they can use around this area that you can look out for. Authoritative is obviously a very useful method, and we've talked about this, haven't we, in your own writing. If you want to be respected and trusted, you need to come across as authoritative. So have a look. Have they used a confident tone? Have they used confident modals like will and must? That creates authority. Have they used facts and statistics? That creates authority. Now, facts and statistics is a method by itself for non-fiction, and it is often on the mark scheme. But if you can say that creates authority, then you're going to be one of those people who stands out as being the 9 or 10 out of 10 student. Personal experience, so like if they've experienced it themselves, which then of course links to the first person. And then if they're quoting experts, remember we talked about that as ethos, somebody who knows what they're talking about, a doctor or someone who works in the place that something's happened to. You don't have to be an expert by getting a degree. You can be an expert because you've experienced something for a long time, or you've just got first-hand experience at all. And obviously quoting experts might link to third person, where somebody makes themselves more authoritative by drawing on others. So look out for those because they do come up a lot. Almost every year they come up, so look out for them. And remember, you only need 3 to 4 methods, so there's quite a few on this page already. Right, your word choices, I'm not going to go through in too much detail because we've been using these for a long time, but I have put a reminder of the 4 word choice, 4 main, there are 8 types of words, word classes, then there's like millions of subclasses. If you do A-level language, you get to learn them all, it's really fun. It really is, I'm not being sarcastic. So these 4 though are the most useful for GCSE. So pause here if you think you need a reminder on this and how to spot them. If not, just carry on. Okay, the actual content, remember for your what marks, we are always looking at what the writer says, aren't we? But you can kind of convert that into a method mark by thinking about what aspect the writer's focused on. So, for example, have they focused on the emotional side, the pathos? Have they focused on the facts? Have they just told us what happened? Have they just done a chronological account of the events? Have they focused more on logos? Have they zoomed into one element of the event? Have they focused on the aftermath? not the actual event? Have they focused on what happened at the time and they've not really thought about the impact of it? So think about what, when you sit down to write an article, you are focusing on one specific element of an event or a thing that's happened. Which part have they focused on? There's a method. And then for the second one, if they've written the text in a different style of text, so if they've drawn on tropes, look for this as well, because it happens loads. So articles or accounts where they draw on features of fiction writing and it reads almost like a story to make it more dramatic. Is there a climax at the end? Does it build? Does it create tension like a story would? And you can write that. So I've put underneath examples of sentence structures that you would use for these methods, because like I say, they do come up a lot. So if you want to jot those down, I've assumed the question is focusing on drama, so that's why the word drama is there for to say focus on the question. That's the key word. But if you can use those sentence structures, then that would be ideal. Just jot those down. Thank you. Okay, tense. I've just put a reminder in the box about past tense. You're looking for ed verbs. Present, you're looking for verbs in their original form. And then future, will walk. You're just looking for the word will. But also look to see the tense changes at the end. Okay, so again, every text is written in a tense. So you're guaranteed a method mark here if you can just kind of link the tense choice to the keyword in the question. So you're looking out for present tense, especially if there's like a dramatic event and they've kind of used present tense to make it feel more immediate and like we're experiencing it with the writer. That's obviously a really good one. And again, is a feature of fiction. Please remember, because this has come up a few times in the past, if someone has written an article in first person and they're telling you that they're in danger, well, they must have survived because they've written the article. Yeah, so bear that in mind. Make yourself a little note now and like put it in a nice big bubble, highlight it. If someone is in danger within an article that they've written, then we know they've survived, because that's come up twice on the past papers. And it's not necessarily going to lose your marks, but it's just something that, like, I want you to be a good reader and I want you to be someone who can work that out and see that. You're being misled. The writer's trying to make you feel like this is the worst, most dramatic, oh God, what's going to happen? But you, as a smart reader, can step back and go, I know you survived. Your name's at the top of the article. You're clearly alive. All right. Future tense, are they directing us to what's going to happen next? And how does that link to the question if it does? And then always look for a change of tense at the end. Have they gone from past tense to future tense, etc.? These are just options. Obviously, it depends on the text and what's useful for the question. And again, there's a sentence structure down there if you want to copy that down so you can remember. Okay. Right, organisation is always on the mark scheme, just looking at how the writer has put the text together, what they started with, what's in the middle, what's at the end. Changes in tone are always worth looking out for. Does it start off with a very pleasant tone and end up being quite sort of invective and angry and sort of shouting towards the reader passionately? Are they do they become more and more persuasive throughout the text? So have a look, because that does often come up, but always comes up is just students being able to comment on, starts focusing on this, it moves towards this. So don't feel like that's not a method, because it absolutely is. That's a choice. You all sat down to write your speeches and thought, hopefully, about what order you wanted to put everything in and what would work best to build up your argument or to help guide your reader through what you have to say. Well, every other writer does that as well, and that's a method, that's a choice. Okay, again, there's a sentence structure there if you want to copy it down. Right, imagery and mood, I'm not going to say anything on, because we've done it loads. You know this stuff, you know how to look out for them. They were on paper 1, but obviously not as prevalent in a non-fiction text, but they do occur, so don't forget to look out for them. And tone really does kind of come into mood, really. I have got a tone sheet which I will send to you, just not today. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to guide you through paper 2. So today we're just going to look at questions 1 and 2, because that's all we'll have time for. And what I would like you to do is, in this, as I've said, in this paper there's 2 texts. And questions 1 and 2 are always related to text 1, and questions 3 and 4 are always related to text 2. And then questions 5 and 6 are always related to both texts. So what I would like you to do just for today, we're going to focus on that text A, or text 1. I'm going to look at questions 1 and 2. So what I'd like you to do now, and we have done this before, but we did it for paper 1, I want you to read, firstly, questions 1 and 2. So I've put those on Show My Homework for you. And then, as you read in the questions, after you've read the questions, I want you to read the actual text, which is in the separate PDF. It's the one that's on 2 pieces of paper, and it's Tom Robbins' name that you're looking for because he is the writer. It tells you in the question. When you're reading, I want you to start highlighting useful quotations or answers to questions 1 and 2. I want you to try and do it in 5 minutes, but don't worry if you go over. You do need to do this properly, and you need to read the text thoroughly. You can go to online stopwatch if you want to time yourself, but obviously, of course, you'll have your phones and you can do it on that as well. So if you pause the video now, please, go and read the text after you've read the questions 1 and 2, and start highlighting useful quotations. Okay. So now you've read the text, and hopefully you should have read questions 1 and 2. What I would like you to do now is have a go at question 1. Now, I've got no guidance other than what I'm about to say to you. You just write down the answer. Do not write full sentences. Do not start writing like using quotations or anything like that. Just write down the answer to these 3 questions, which is why I'm suggesting you do this in 3 minutes. So underneath your notes, question 1, A, B and C, and write down the answer next to each one. Bear in mind that sometimes there's a misstep or mislead where you might think you've got the answer, but you haven't. Some people can make silly mistakes on these questions. So do make sure that you're getting the right figure, or the right amount, whatever they're asking for, the right year for question for A. So double check, because sometimes there's misleading little, like they've got little landmines in there to trip you up. Okay, so again, time yourself and just write down the answers. All right, up you go. Okay, so let's do some marking then. For the exam board, this is the mark scheme. So if you grab yourself a green pen or a different colour pen. For A, they were just looking for the year 1823, but they did allow 2 Saturdays ago as well, just sort of, because obviously it had just erupted as well, so it was a kind of a misleading question. You will find they'll do that during the like when the examiners get together before they start marking, they'll look for answers that they think, oh, actually, this is right, we should add this to the mark scheme. B, they were looking 500 metres, and C, 5 miles wide. So this is literally yes or no. There's no debating. If you've got those words written down, you can have the tick. If you haven't, then you'll have a cross. Like I said, don't feel too bad if you've made any silly mistakes, because this does happen quite often. People tend to drop 1 or 2 marks, but obviously, if we want to be getting our top marks and these are the silly mistakes we can try and iron out. So just have a step back and reflect. If you didn't get 3, what went wrong in terms of your reading skills there? Like, what did you not look across the whole text properly? Did you miss a fact by skipping over it when you were reading? Have a think about that. Okay. Right, so that's question 1, really straightforward and nice. We're going to move on now to question 2, or question 12. I don't know why they do that. Which is obviously the how question. Now, I didn't ask you to do any how questions last week because it's the most straightforward question, and we've done them a million gazillion times, but just a reminder of the similarities and differences with the how questions. So similarities, you've got your same formulas, you've got your what mark, quotation plus inference, you've got your how mark, method, quotation, effect. Now, you don't need to write this down if you feel like it's like ingrained into your brain, but it's just a reminder just in case, and you can make notes if you want. The differences between this paper and paper 1 is that on paper 1, remember, they direct you to look at specific lines within the text. On this one, you have to use the whole of the text. So don't clump all your quotations from like the first 5 paragraphs. You're not going to get anywhere near full marks, because the range of points and the coverage of the article will really make a difference when you get to band 4 and 5. So make sure you're drawing information from across the entire text, please. Different methods are likely to come up, which I've already gone through with you. Okay, so we're not like taking a look now. Sorry, I changed the order and didn't edit it. I apologize. Okay, so how question you need to be aiming to complete in 12 minutes. Now don't panic, I'm not going to launch you in right now. I've got a few more things to help you out. But let's just take a look at the question first. How does Tom Robbins try to make his account of Iceland's erupting volcano exciting and dramatic? Now, hopefully you all know exactly why I've underlined exciting and dramatic. It's because they're the key words and they're the things that you're looking for evidence of. You're looking for evidence of content that is exciting and dramatic. It doesn't have to be both. Please don't write exciting and dramatic, exciting and dramatic. It either is exciting or it's dramatic. Now, there's a really quite a subtle difference between exciting and dramatic. Things that are dramatic do tend to be exciting, but they can also be, you know, panicky and miserable and horrible. So make sure that you think anything you pin as exciting has to be kind of danger-free and like quite, you know, impressive or wow, like awe-inducing. Dramatic can be negative and full of sort of panic and fear and danger. Okay, so as always, you're going to comment on what he says for most of your marks, and then you're going to comment on the use of language, structure and tone. And then other ways he tries to make his account exciting and dramatic, which is just, I don't know what you're supposed to do with that bullet point, to be honest. The first two are what you need. And then you've got your sentence formulas down there. The writer uses quotation, which suggests, and the writer uses method quotation to effectively highlight. Okay, jot those down if you need to. But before you get started, I'm just going to kind of model for you the steps you need to take to get yourself ready. Now, you should have already started highlighting key quotations for the article when you read it in the first instance, but obviously some of this time now might be needed to go back and add to your quotations and your highlights. So this is my example of the first sort of two sentences, paragraphs with the stand first at the top. So we've got Iceland's eruptive volcano. The first thing that I've seen when I've gone through the first part of the text is this word, the show. And I think that's a very interesting word choice to describe a volcano erupting. It's not one that I would use because I would see danger, danger. But obviously, this is after the event. It's become an instant tourist attraction. So obviously, it's safe now. And Tom Robbins is the writer, and he's traveling by snowmobile and helicopter to see the show. So the first thing I might comment on is the idea that the show is quite it is a very exciting word, doesn't it? It shows that there's something to see here. So I'm going to highlight that. We've then got straight away, we've got something that contextualizes when this is happening. So 2 Saturdays ago, so we know that it was 2 weeks ago that this volcano started to erupt. And we've got now, which I've underlined, Johnson's baby daughter woke up crying. We've got here an anecdote, haven't we? We've got zooming in to one particular person who's had this experience, because Tom Robbins hasn't. Tom Robbins is a journalist who's coming to report on it. He's not had a direct personal experience. So I've highlighted that specific quotation, but you could highlight many different ones in this paragraph. You know, there's a sense of danger and drama, isn't there, with comfort and mobile went off and then her mobile rang as well. So there's lots of drama in this paragraph, but I've just focused on the fact that he zoomed into one specific man's story. The only reason I've highlighted had started erupting is because I want to remind myself that this is at the start of the volcano erupting. This is, again, it's positioning me in time. It's letting me know when this happened. And you need to take that into account, you know, when you're pinning down your inferences and working out why it's dramatic. In the next paragraph, again, you know, we've got the background of where he lives and the kind of history. I did consider highlighting it hadn't erupted since 1823, but I changed my mind because in the grand scheme of things, that doesn't really create drama or excitement in comparison to so many other things in the article. So I left it. However, there is the idea, I suppose, that, you know, this has been a long time coming, so it's exciting that it's finally happening. You might be able to get a mark for that. Right, I've highlighted the word could. An eruption could melt the ice, because again, this is just to remind myself again that this is at the stage where we don't know what's going to happen. So when he says it could send devastating flash floods down the mountain, right, devastating flash floods is definitely dramatic, isn't it? It's definitely going to be something that's, you know, massive and horrendous for people. So I've highlighted that. That's definitely a quotation I'm going to use. But if I ignore the word could there, I'm going to get my inference wrong, because this is not guaranteed to happen, and this did not necessarily happen. This was about the anticipation of this man getting this phone call and knowing that this devastating flash floods could happen. So it's all about the expectation of the event, the sense of danger at the start, and how dramatic it was at the beginning when you don't know the extent of this volcano and what it's capable of. Okay. And then I've highlighted right now because I feel like there's a sense of urgency there, which creates drama. You could have talked about the heavy sulfur in the air. It definitely isn't exciting. I don't necessarily think it's dramatic either. I suppose it's so unusual, and it's something that you know that would make you feel like you could get suffocated, so you could pin it down to drama. So that's not too bad a quotation as well. You know, the sky had turned red is again quite dramatic, isn't it? So again, you could have highlighted that no problem, or could highlight that no problem, sorry. Now, overall here then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 points already, and I'm only on paragraph 2. So even though there's plenty of other things I could have highlighted here, I'm not going to, because I need to cover the whole article in 10 points, and I've already got 4 from 2 paragraphs. So remember to spread them out. So you're going to go through the rest of the article now and highlight as many of the quotations using what I've just gone through with you as guidance. Highlight as many others as you can, and then step back and actually think, what are my best 10 points here? What's the ones that are going to get me the best marks? Okay. Don't start writing until you've played the video again, because then I'm about to now go through with you how to start the question. So pause now and highlight, step back, and maybe label 1 to 10 the points that you're going to use. Okay, if you're not able to print the text, I know that's really annoying, I'm sorry, you might just need to jot down your quotations on a piece of paper, or if you are able to kind of copy and paste it onto a Word document where you can kind of, like I've done, just add lines on to underline them, that'll work as well. Okay, so pause now. Okay, welcome back then. Hopefully you have a good solid 10 quotations that you'd like to build your how response to. I'm just going to take you through now sort of two, like I always do, 2 opening lines that you can use in your answer, and then you can finish it off. If you feel really confident, just get started on your how question, and that's fine. I'm not going to give you an overview because I do want you to have to think about that when you've finished your answer. But here's just 2 examples. So I'll just give you the key first of all. In red, we've got the keywords from the question. In green, we've got methods. And in blue, we've got the sort of pinned effect or inference. Okay? Which is where we'd put our ticks. So firstly, the writer creates excitement by using the noun show to suggest the eruption has created a spectacle. Tick. Spectacle was my inference for show. You might have thought of a different one, that's fine. Next, the writer focuses on the story of a specific man with a family, woke up crying, giving us a personal, more dramatic account. Okay, so we've got the effect doesn't need to be really in depth. You don't need to go on and on about how, oh, this makes us feel sorry for the man and makes us feel more afraid. Just, it gives us a more personal, dramatic account. Okay. You could have used the word anecdote instead of the writer focuses on the story of a specific man. You could have just said the writer chooses to focus on the anecdotal experience of a farmer, or even just said the writer uses the anecdote. I just really like the word focuses. I think it makes it really clear to the examiner that this is a method, and you know that this is a choice the writer's made. But obviously that's up to you. Okay, so you've got 2 marks there to start you off. So I want you to carry on now, pause the video, carry on and see if you can convert some more of your highlighted quotations into your answer. Okay, this is an example answer then, which I'm not going to mark with you live because I just don't think it's going to work in this format, especially because it's quite long. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to skip this slide, but if you wanted to now, you could pause it and have a go at ticking this up yourself and deciding what mark you would have given it. Okay, this is my pre-marked answer, like Blue Peter. Oh, do you still know Blue Peter? I don't know. Ignore the comment if you don't know what Blue Peter is. So overall, Robbins creates a sense of spectacle, suggesting this is a unique event. That's a really nice overview, which is worthy of a tick. We've got Robbins opens his account. Well, it's not an account, it's an article, but the examiner would probably just put a post over that and ignore it. With the experiences of a local farmer who had a series of late night phone calls, then his wife's mobile, immediately creating the sense that something urgent was happening. So I've ticked over urgent, that's a nice inference, but immediately as well is a really nice word to kind of really pin down the effect of this moment. He then, so we've got some nice structure, you can see throughout I've circled like structural words that kind of indicate the writer's choices in order. So he then emphasizes the potential impact of the eruption using dramatic language, devastating flash floods. Impact of the eruption is the effect. That's what he's emphasizing. And the word potential is important there. He's not emphasizing what did happen. Do you remember that word could? It was about what might happen. And we've got the method dramatic language. Next, Robin switches to his own experiences using the vivid verb. Very nice addition to the word verb there, which is again a method. Spewing, to emphasize the fire's power. So we've got an effect there pinned down. And obviously, even though it doesn't say the word drama there, or even excitement, I suppose, it's obvious, isn't it, that to see a fire spewing and being that powerful is dramatic, or a bit exciting, depending on your perspective. Robin suggests the sight is almost unbelievable. That's an inference because that's again dramatic. Through the words, I have to remind myself that this is for real. Sorry, I didn't actually say it's really good that they picked up on the fact that Robbins goes from this farmer's perspective to his own perspective. Yeah, he says he switches to his own experiences. That in itself is a method mark. So there's two methods in that sentence. He then uses precise statistics, 100 meters in the air, to capture the impressive heights the lava reached. Again, there's an inference there that this is obviously exciting because it's impressive. The use of the antithesis, beauty and danger, to describe the sight creates the sense that the event was an all-encompassing experience, so impressive you would risk your life for it. Bit waffly, I don't know if the antithesis is a really good, particularly good method here. I do think there is, though, and that's why I've ticked it, a good understanding of the idea that, you know, people are going to watch this volcano in the later stages of its eruption 2 weeks later. So there is a bit of danger there, and it's so impressive that people are willing to do that. So I do think that that's a valid point, which is why I've ticked it, but it's a bit of a waffly way to get there, and I'm not sure the method of antithesis, which remember is contrasts, really is what creates that. Next, Robbins uses the metaphor waterfall of molten lava. So there's an example of a metaphor coming into a non-fiction text. To create drama, finally got a keyword in that's actually explicit, and suggest the flow was both powerful and graceful. So that's a tick because we've looked at connotations of waterfall. Yeah, waterfalls are very powerful, but they're also very graceful. Very, very cute image, I think, a waterfall of molten lava. And again, I don't know if it would have been better to say about, you know, how impressive it would be as well, but I suppose they've used the word impressive already. Finally, the article ends with a description of the lava freshly collected from the bowels of the earth, which highlights the event gave him an exciting treasure, something he wouldn't have been able to access without the explosion. So yeah, he ends, doesn't he, by saying that he's able to, because he went to visit this volcano, he's now got the excitement of having this piece of piece of rock, I suppose it would be when it's dried, from the bowels of the earth, and that's exciting. Okay, so if you count up the ticks, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, but there are plenty of methods here. So I personally would give it 9. Some examiners would give this 10. All right. So what I would like you to do now is mark your own. But before you do that, I've got the mark scheme to show you as well. So this is the mark scheme. And as always, they don't tell you the inference, do they, on the mark scheme? They just list the part of the text that you could have commented on. So you've got not only these, you've also got all of these as well. So I'd like you to pause on each of these slides, have a read through them, and look we've done this before, which of these points have you not included, and where are they in the text? investigate yourself. Look and see, is there a part of the text that you've just skipped over? Are all of your points clumped together for one part? Did you miss something? Just anything. Step back and think, which ones have you missed? Now, obviously, you didn't expect to get them all. I've not counted them, but it looks like there's about 18 there, and there's only a 10 marker, so don't worry too much. The other thing to stress is that these are in order of the text as well, apart from at the bottom they tend to kind of, oh no, they haven't really done it on this one. The last bullet point is obviously, it's 2 photographs, could come anywhere. It tends to go in order of the text. So also realise that if all of your points are from the first slide, then you've not covered the end of the text in much detail. So what the ideal thing I'd like to see is that you can tick off maybe half the points on this slide, and well, actually there's not as many on this slide, is there? But you know what I mean? Like, hopefully your points are spread out across these 2 slides, and then you've got that range. So have a look now. And if you didn't get 10 quotations, then obviously this is where you're going to think about, well, they were looking for me to comment on this one and this one and this one. Okay. Once you have done that, can you then obviously tick up your own answer as requested, and give yourself a mark out of 10. And I'm going to ask in Show My Homework for specific people to send me their how answers. And I'm going to, so across the week, there'll be, you know, if you're not asked today to send your answer, then I'll ask you tomorrow to send your answer. So you'll at least have sent me one response by the end of the week that I can then give feedback on next week. Okay. And just make sure you're on the right lines with the marking and your actual pinning inferences, etc. All right. So hope that's okay. Let me know if you have any questions. And let me know if this was useful, because I am going to kind of mirror it for the rest of the week with the rest of the paper. So obviously let me know now, speak now, or forever hold your peace if there's anything that you're not, that you haven't liked, etc. All right, thanks guys, have a lovely day.